So part of the person responsible for that performance is a man who is here, who is also nominated for an Academy Award, who's going to come up and say a few words about the man in the green shirt. And so can I introduce the wonderful, amazing director, James Mangold.
Thank you. After watching this rambling Phil Donahue show over here, whatever I fucking wrote is out the window. But Josh, thank you, because actually the conversation is really interesting and a beautiful reflection of who Timothée is. And I guess I'm just going to say a few things that are inspired by what you guys have been talking about. One of them is something that I you might have heard me say before, someone might have heard me say before, but it's an important thing to me, and I think it's an important reflection on what they've been talking about, which is, at least in my opinion, it's part of the way Timothée bumps on the word performance. In my opinion, acting at the level that we're talking about tonight, acting isn't lying. I'm going to say that again. Acting is not lying. Acting is telling the truth. And thank you. It's a big misconception in my mind about what acting is, that acting is bullshitting or lying or putting it on. And at least with a camera aimed at you close up, that won't cut it. That just won't cut it. What someone's got to do is be there. And that's telling the truth. What you're seeing as Timothée talks is someone who can't help but tell you what he's thinking or feeling, even if it's, I don't know. The point is that there's a commitment in him to being real. And that's more important now at a time when everything is snarky and full of shit and postmodern and hardly anyone is sincere about fucking anything, that it's really important that earnestness and truthfulness get celebrated. And thank you, and thank you. My feelings about Timothée are real simple. We've been kind of glued together, working, trying to make this movie happen for 6 years. And maybe it is a beautiful accident or beautiful sense of destiny that it didn't happen until the right time. I do think it is kind of an historic level of preparation that Timothée had to prepare for this role, and I did see him grow and expand. And I watched him, everyone celebrates as well, they should, the miraculous nature of him just going from pretty much zero with a guitar to being able to powerfully render Bob Dylan songs on a stage or in a studio live in a way that is breathtaking. Yeah. But what also happened, and you'll correct me when you come up and speak, Timothée, if I'm wrong, but what also happened was that Timothée's process for getting into Bob was through the music. And so what was happening is he went through the mechanics of chords and strumming and how he played it and how he sang it, is there was something else magical happening, which is those words, the actual guy's words, were channeling through him for 6 years as he sang them. And he uses this term, which I love, called osmosis, that his process of learning how to be Bob was through a process of osmosis, which he, credits the songs being the first kind of part of that. And I always remember osmosis from biology class. It had something to do with plants. It seemed slow and kind of magical or something, but I looked it up today. Osmosis is the process by which solvent molecules move through a semi-permeable membrane from a less concentrated solution to a more concentrated solution. The process occurs until the solute concentrations on both sides of the membrane are equal. It is such a perfect fucking description of the process you went through. Both sides of the membrane became equal. My goal making a movie like this is never, when I made Walk the Line, Joaquin Phoenix, I tell the story all the time. I've told it to Timmy, would come up to me once a week and go, tell me that thing. And I'd go, you're not Johnny Cash. And he'd go, thank you. And what that meant, what that was code for, was that we're not here to build a perfect Disney animatronic, perfect mimicry of the real person. There's actually footage and recordings. You want to hear a Bob Dylan record, they're right out there. You can get them. You want to see Bob Dylan, there's documentaries. We're doing something else, which is investigating shit that didn't get shot and didn't get recorded. Because we both know when Bob was getting shot by a documentary crew, he very well was performing himself because he knew he was on camera. We were after something that when there was no one watching, but I'm also after something else. I am after Timothée. I don't want to lose him because that's why I wanted to make the movie. He's why I wanted to make the movie. Finding him in that role was the reason we wanted to make that film. And in the last thing I'll talk about is just in the process of making the film, you'll notice there's kind of a sporty mentality that you'll hear from Timothée when he talks about his work. There's a kind of commitment. There's a kind of, it is all real. He's a player on a team. He is incredibly supportive of the crew, of everyone there. He is focused. He's trying to deliver for himself and for others. One example would just be, yes, he was playing live, but you'd think most of the time if I'm shooting him, yeah, okay, he's playing live. But when I'm shooting Ed Norton or Elle Fanning listening to him and he's behind the camera, well, he's not going to play live then. No, he did. He played live when I was shooting extras and you couldn't see him. He was playing, offering himself to the camera and to the others in the movie. And that's a kind of generosity of spirit that I also felt myself over the past 6 years, which is that he made it his job, or he was dedicated to the task of checking in with me. He might have been shooting Dune, he might have been shooting Wonka, he might have been anywhere, but I got texts and calls. I would get videos of where he was getting on the song. We would check in. I would read him a new scene I wrote. He would read it back with me. People get cynical about the way show business works, and you can be, but this is not one of those examples. This is a real true heart who is really ambitious, who wants to do great things, who is committed to it, and who cherishes a kind of you couldn't find a more modern dude on one side, a more of an absolute emblem of his age, but at the same time, there's something very classical and very traditional and old school about Timothée. He is committed to the theatrical and a tradition of being connected to his director, to his writer, to the work, and finding them and staying glued to them and not journeying off in his own mental space, but staying glued to the people around him, his collaborators, his teammates who are making the movie with him. And that was, it's a really moving thing for me because it's something I've rarely seen at the level and for the longevity that we shared that process. And it's something I will remember all my life because I think it's also visible on the screen. And visible in all your work. Yes, please applause. So summing up my impromptu remarks would just be saying this is a real actor. This is not a liar. This is a truth-telling person. This is a person who makes it their mission, who understands the rectangle, who understands what I mean by the rectangle is the size of the shot. Where is the camera? How do I relate to it? How do I connect to everything else? There is an absolute genetic understanding in this young man of how to use all those elements to try and deliver to you some kind of indescribable, undefinable truth about what it is to be a human being and alive in the world. And as Josh was saying, I think this is only the beginning of a lot of gifts he's going to give us in the years to come. And it is saying that makes me incredibly proud and honored to be here tonight to deliver him the Santa Barbara Arlington Artist of the Year. Did I get it right?
All right. All right, well, thank you for this award. I'm deeply honored to receive this. I was here 7 years ago. I got a Virtuoso Award, and I've put a solid body of work between my experience then as a young man until now as a less young man. Not quite Josh Brolin. But thank you to Roger Durling for your propagation of this festival, for your constant support and stewardship of the arts. Thank you to Matthew Greenfield, David Greenbaum at Searchlight for your belief in this project. Perhaps the biggest thank you of all to James Mangold for your kind words, for your masterful hand in guiding this project to life over 5.5 years, and for your trust in unleashing me. And thank you to the incomparable Bob Dylan, an artist who left behind a body of work that has come to possess me like the Holy Spirit. In many ways, A Complete Unknown was a bridge to a time period where the soul of America made for fertile, artistic soil. In fact, a number of my projects in recent years have been born of the free thinking of the 1960s and 1970s. It seemed in this period of America, all you had to do was step outside and you'd come across a curious thinker, an optimism about society that had not yet been bludgeoned by the reality of the world. With this in mind, this project was an absolute blessing to relish in, start to finish. 5.5 years of inhabiting the thinker of the 1960s and getting to relay this passion to my peers in the run-up to this movie, like Josh and Stephen Henderson and Oscar Isaac, and then with the whole world upon the release of this film. It's been an absolute dream come true. I don't know how else to put it. I feel like I've gotten to be a bridge to one of the great thinkers of all time. You're only as vibrant as your surroundings, and I've been lucky in my come up to be surrounded by deep, passionate, and open thinkers like James Mangold and Josh Brolin, the work of Bob Dylan and James Baldwin. And as I grow, I seek to leave behind a body of work that can do the same for someone else one day. Thank you very much for this award. Let's segue into the conversation part of tonight's festivities, which I obviously wrote before we did this. Thank you so much.